It's not just boring, it's mind-numbing.
In 2.5 hours in this movie, I never felt that trajectory.
Kyle Marshall and David Young
are the Wild Rovers.
Should we say welcome back?
Sure.
Because people are watching now. Welcome back to Kyle and Dave versus the Machine Video Edition. This week, we're going to talk about Wild Rovers. Kyle, I'm just going to go over to you. Give it to me. Lay it on me, Daddy-O.
Well, as you will hear fully in our podcast, I'm definitely more positive on this movie than Dave is, although I also do not really like it all that much. I don't use this term very often, but I was bored by large swaths of this movie. The fact that this movie was initially supposed to be 3 hours plus shocks me because there is so much of them riding and walking and walking and riding and walking and walking and riding some more to get to these different places. I will acknowledge there are a few sequences that I think are really well done. The shootout after the card game. I love William Holden in this movie. I also think that the music is phenomenal in this movie. But as a piece of entertainment, like I never really ever want to watch this movie ever again because it never is able to, I don't know, overcome the tropes within it. I find that Blake Edwards does a great job of comedy and skewering people like in the Pink Panther movies. And I was hoping for something similar to this, and I feel like there was an attempt occasionally at that, but most of it falls flat. And I hate Ryan O'Neal, and that's this movie.
I kind of to the point do not remember much about this film.
Oh, it might be a little interesting because I think I said that exact thing in the episode where you were trying to say like, this is the exact same thing as $1 Million Duck. I'm like, you're going to forget this movie in like 3 days after watching it.
Sorry, what was this thing called again? It's not just boring, it's mind-numbing. There's just something wrong with it on a very base level. There are some shots, I guess, that are appealing. There are some moments like every film we've watched this year that touch on a possibility that you kind of have this, you kind of sit up for a second, be like, oh, maybe, and then no.
I guess in like spoilery sort of talk, I do feel like the biggest thing that this movie fails at is what it is driving towards. And maybe that is partly because this was taken away from Blake Edwards, recut for him. So potentially, I will acknowledge that there is a chance that the 3-hour cut makes this all make sense. But you set up these villains who are basically not in this movie for almost 50 minutes, who come back at the very end, and there's supposed to be some sort of like cathartic moment as they realize their wrongdoings, I guess, maybe. It's never really explained a whole lot, so I never felt that fear or that dread. It just felt, like nothing at the end of it. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I was 2.5 hours I just spent watching this.
Yeah, I just had this image of, what was the movie? Another one I forgot all about. Summer of 42.
Oh,
of the kids sitting there flicking elastic bands in their mouth. That is a metaphor of watching this film. You're just in a lawn, just and once in a while you hit something and you'd be like, oh, that actually sounded okay, and then who cares, because you're just wasting your whole fucking afternoon.
The mouth flute of movies, apparently.
Just so that you don't have to watch it, this movie is about two, what do you call them? Cowpunchers?
Cowpunchers is what the official description describes them as.
Super weird.
2 cowpunchers.
So a group of cowpunchers or cowhands or whatever you call them are living on this ranch, and 2 of them are sick of the life. One is a psychotic asshole. Turns out the character is just an idiot. And then William Holden. William Holden's the tough, old, and kind of beat up guy that's just tired of the grind. And allegedly...
And again, I will reiterate, I think he does a pretty great job in this movie, but he's not asked to do a lot because there's really no plot for most of this movie.
Somehow they decide, this is how bad this movie is. I don't even know when they actually decide to rob this bank. It just kind of like happens.
Stopped being a cowboy and started robbing banks. Well, then let's you and me rob us a bank.
Now you're thinking, maybe it's a heist movie. It's not. They just show up at a house, hold a wife, a grandma, and a newborn child hostage, and then fuck it up from there. I didn't even understand the rest of the movie. There's a cougar. They throw a cougar on a horse.
We talk all the time here in 1971 how they did not give a shit about animals.
Oh my God.
They literally didn't, because they throw an actual cougar onto an actual horse in this movie, and it's like, holy shit. Yeah. I'm watching animal cruelty on screen in real time.
The stunt doesn't even make sense in the context of the film, because allegedly, just randomly, there's a psychotic cougar that's going to hunt down humans and then disappears. It's just stupid. I think it's so that they ride the mule together, which maybe is supposed to be funny.
Hey, where are we going to get us another horse?
It's not.
Yeah, I know. It goes over long. Maybe this is a misread on my part, but I feel that there's somewhat of a thrust here of them starting off as like antagonists in some way, and then by the end, we're supposed to look at them as like protagonists. Something that a movie called Attack the Block did here a few years ago, one of John Boyega's first movies. I love that movie. These are asshole kids, and then by the end of it, oh no, these are heroes, and we understand a little bit more about them. In 2.5 hours in this movie, I never felt that trajectory, and I guess I just wanted something in to understand anything about these characters. And even with all this time spent, I didn't know more about them by the end of it than I did at the beginning of it.
It's crazy to think that you can trim an hour off of a director's cut, a Snyder cut, and the movie still feels boring and slow and has so many unnecessary shots.
See, I can't honestly get too upset about it.
To your point, there's a point in the film where William Holden is in the gambling den whorehouse, and he does have this presumably emotional moment where he's kind of reflecting on where he is in his life, and they do 4 or 5 different camera changes of his face from different parts of the room. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. You can establish it with one shot.
He's really thinking about it, Dave.
And they like to do that 70s pan in where, I don't know, the whole thing's awful. But it does lead up to the only moment of excitement, the card game shootout scene. There's a kind of neat black character in it, which they throw away because it's not useful to the plot. I think I forgot to mention this, but he was the bad guy in Shaft, the same actor.
Right.
I just don't remember the actor's name, but he's great. He just appears. They need to go to him for refuge. He's got some great lines. There's a joke about a cat and milk. And then Ryan O'Neal, the asshole, like basically threatens to kill him, and they leave. And that's the end of that character. It's awful.
All right. I don't think we need to talk anything more about this, Dave. I say just jump to the intermission and watch the final 40 minutes.
There's an intermission, and an entr'acte, and I don't know.
They cut an hour out of this movie, and they still have the gall to put an intermission in.
Is there anything else we should talk about?
Just listen to our full
Still
review this Friday. We do discuss about the myth of the Western itself, and I think that's an interesting conversation. But other than that, it's a little bit of a miss from Blake Edwards, I think.
That's one thematic point we could talk quickly about. What is a cowboy, if not a cowpuncher? Something to think about.
I've punched a few cows in my life.
That is not
I've lived to tell the tale.
Which end is the real question, front or back? Hey.
What happens on the farm stays on the farm, Dave.
Tune in to our audio, subscribe for more video, and if we're really lucky, next week we'll talk about the cowboy of all cowboys. But I don't want to spoil anything. We're going to talk about John Wayne.
On the fly, trying to think of like the least convincing cowboy or something. That's right. More Ryan O'Neal next week, Dave.
Daniel Stern, maybe? Could we go City Slickers?
Daniel Stern, yeah, that's right.
All right, well, let's do it. Let's hit the open road.
I got it. No, I don't. They've been a lot of places, done a lot of things. Had some good times and a few bad ones. And the only thing they can stick to is each other.